Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's xTek tips and tricks will focus on the 1987 to 1990 GT Pro Performer Pro Freestyle Tour, and the same would apply to like the Dyno Pro Compe from the same era, and any other bike that has internal cable routing through the fork. I get asked this question very often. How do you route the brake cable through the forks of the GT? And for the first timers building their bikes, this can be a little intimidating, but trust me, it's actually quite easy. Believe me, I've seen professional bike shops and YouTubers, and I won't mention their names, run the cable outside the forks and then use a zip tie. Without using the internal routing, it just seems gaudy. It makes your build look amateur. So there are a few methods to accomplish this task, but I prefer this one the best. This is what I'm going to show you, so let's get started. The first thing is you'll need a brake cable housing or a used brake cable, something that was laying around, about 24 inches long, and you want the trigger or the ball end on one end. If you don't have the brake cable to start with, that's fine. It's a little riskier to use the actual brake cable, as there's a possibility you could fray the end of the cable. You can also install the crimp end and just pinch it lightly, but it's not necessary, and I'll show you why in a few minutes. Ideally, you want to have the bike sort of semi-built and ready to kind of accept all the parts. It makes this a lot easier. Step 2 is going to be to make a bend in the cable near the end, about 45 to 90 degrees, somewhere in between there, and about 1/2 inch to 2 inch from the end of the cable, like so. The next thing is going to be super important, but you need a sacrificial cable housing. 1 foot to 2 feet long is plenty. And the reason for this is no matter what the state of your forks are, whether they're NOS, they're powder coated, Survivor, etc., there's going to be some debris and oxidation internally. So running a brand new white cable housing through your fork will result in a dirty cable as it passes through and a very angry you. So use the sacrificial housing to clean up the passage first, and you'll thank me later. Now that you have that cleaned up, you want to take your brake cable and insert it into the fork boss and up towards the steer tube. Make sure you're in the correct fork tube. If you're looking at the back of the forks, you want the left side tube. If you're looking at the front of the fork, you want the right side tube. Then use your finger to push the cable from the fork tube to the steer tube. It should make the transition without much effort. Now you want to push the cable up through and out of the steer tube. If you put the cable end on, just remove it now. Now is the time to get the front end of the bike assembled, especially if you're building a bike with the 1988 to 1990 style gooseneck stem from GT. You'll need to pass the cable through that plastic dust cap as well before you proceed to the next step. Now insert the brake cable into the actual brake cable housing that you will be using. Remember, without the NARP or the ferrule attached. That is important. Next, push the brake cable housing down the steer tube and use your finger to assist the housing make the bend and transition into the fork tube. It should go without much effort. Continue pushing the housing until you see it in the fork boss hole. Then you'll need to manipulate the cable slightly to get the housing lined up, but it will pass right through. And that's pretty much it. Now, before I get asked in the comment section, yes, you can absolutely use this method for the frame down tube guidance for the 1987 to 1990 double bend frames like on the Pro Performer and the Pro Freestyle Tour. Same exact idea. So that wraps it up. Short and sweet. I hope you learned something and you're able to build your dream bike. Let me know if this was helpful and what methods that you may have used. If you're new to the channel, please check out my other videos and subscribe. I have a lot more content coming. Hit that like button. Remember, stay healthy, keep building, and remember, tomorrow is not guaranteed.